here, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today we are doing a wrestling bios reaction, and this is from his Reliving the War series. It's for someone who reacts to something from Reliving the War, and this is going to be WCW /NWO Uncensored 1998. Alright, we got matches like Diamond Dallas Page versus Raven versus Error 404 for the United States Championship. Sting versus Scott Hall for the WCW World Heavyweight title. Hollywood Hogan versus Randy Savage inside a steel cage. That sounds interesting. And Bret Hart making his second WCW pay-per-view appearance against Kurt Hennig. Those sound like, now just hearing those matches, those sound cool enough, and I'm really hoping, hoping I can go see this go see one of the matches. So, without further ado, we're going to start, and yeah, here we go. Please support Wrestling Bios. I'll leave a link to both his channel. I'll end this video in the description for you to check out. Without further ado, let's go in 3, 2, 1, click.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Dun, 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 dun. Uncensored. Let's go.
WCW NWO Uncensored 1998 took place in Mobile, Alabama on March 15th. Around 7,500 fans attended the event, with an estimated 415,000 fans buying the show on pay-per-view, similar numbers to last month's Super Brawl event. Hollywood Hogan versus Randy Savage is our main event, a match contested inside a steel cage, and Scott Hall finally gets his world title shot when he wrestled Sting in the semi-main spot. The commentators talk about tonight possibly being the night the NWO falls apart. Hogan and Savage going towards bad enough, but Scott Hall winning the world belt could cause tension in the NWO locker room before Hogan even steps inside the cage.
So let's find out what happened, and let's see if the
NWO survive after Uncensored 1998. Quick side note, guys, I haven't been feeling too good this week, and I've got a real bad throat. I'm pretty sure it's going to make this video sound bad, so apologies in advance.
It's all good, mate.
We've got a TV title match to start us off. Champion Booker T versus Eddie Guerrero. On Thunder this past week, Eddie defeated nephew Chavo, and now Chavo has to always be at Eddie's side, and he pretty much has to do whatever Eddie says. The best thing about this is that Eddie and Chavo now have something to do on TV. Eddie stalls at the opening bell, and Booker gets the crowd pumped up. Guerrero tries to cheap shot Booker, but the TV champ delivers a backdrop, and Eddie gets his ass broken with a sidewalk slam. When Eddie gets clotheslined out of the ring, he wants to know if Chavo's gonna help him out, and Chavo's like, "Nothing I can do, pal, you're on your own." The crowd chants Eddie sucks as he extends his hand to Booker while on his knees, but Booker's got a firm handshake it seems, and Eddie goes down after a hook kick. Eddie then takes a power slam, and he says, "That's enough." He's going home, and he's going to forget this match ever took place. Booker brings the challenger back to the ring for a press slam, and the champ thinks about a Harlem hangover, but Eddie finally fights back with a dropkick, followed by a superplex. Eddie's momentum gets briefly stopped with a standing sidekick from Booker T, but Eddie manages to counter the scissors kick with a low drop kick. Eddie then focuses all his efforts on Booker's knee, and he mocks Booker T on the outside, raising the roof while the crowd boos. Back in the ring, Eddie brings it down to the mat where he gets warned over and over again about using the ropes for extra leverage. Thing is though, Nick Patrick traded in respect for that shit hairdo of his, so Eddie keeps cheating until he's finally had enough. Guerrero performs his apron senton while continuing to target Booker's knee. It looks like Eddie delays a bit when on the top rope, but if you watch it again closely, Guerrero's actually still aiming for the knee, but in fairness, it didn't look good. Eddie performs a back suplex in the ring, and out of nowhere, Booker comes back with a flopjack followed by a scissors kick. I mean, it was just like that. Eddie dodges a top rope dropkick and he tries setting Booker up for a super Hurricane Rana. Booker pushes Eddie away. He then lands that dropkick and Booker retains the television title. It looks like Chavo approves of this outcome, and once Booker T leaves, Eddie confronts his nephew, wondering why he was smiling when Booker won. The two shove each other. Eddie realizes he's maybe being too harsh. He leads Chavo into a false sense of security, and then Chavo gets attacked. Eddie throws Chavo into the guardrail before laying the boots in, and that's how the opening match ended. Still a decent match, though you've seen better from both competitors. Conan versus Juventud Guerrera is up next. Conan's been making fun of Juvi ever since he unmasked, and even though Juvi lost the match against Scott Norton on Nitro, he still got booked in this grudge match by the WCW Executive Committee. Guerrero comes out, guns blazing, and Conan has to keep Juvi in check with a clothesline. Guerrero fires back with a head scissor takedown. He then intentionally feigns air Juvi, and it didn't look great, did it? Guerrero gets sent into the ring steps, and Conan rearranges the furniture a bit, but it's Juvi who uses the ring steps as a springboard, and Conan gets taken out. Back in the ring, Juvi performs a springboard dropkick, and Conan replies by dropping Guerrero on the top rope. Conan then performs a unique submission hold, but remember Juvi's new motto, never surrender. If you've got a motto like that, you can't ever submit again throughout your entire career. Juvi jumps on Conan's shoulders and K-Dog counters with a released German suplex. Juvi does a front flip when taking a catapult, and then the punishment continues when Conan throws Guerrero across the ring like he's nothing at all. Conan then performs a rocking horse, and Juvi takes a lot of weight on his neck when Conan sits down. You can see Conan checking on Guerrero because that right there could have been very dangerous. The referee and Conan let Juvi roll out the ring to recover a little, and Guerrero takes his time. When the match resumes, Conan performs another unique submission hold from the fireman's carry position, but remember, never surrender. There's a great reversal spot next where Juvi lands on his feet from a top rope German suplex attempt, and he immediately drop kicks Conan afterwards. Guerrero lays the boots in as he begins to get his confidence back, but Conan once again stops Guerrero, this time with a wheelbarrow suplex. Juvi manages to come back and he delivers a facebuster. Guerrero then tries to end it with a 450, but Conan dodges it and Juvi lands on his feet. Conan then performs the cradle DDT, and somehow Guerrero kicks out. Conan then performs a modified Samoan drop, and his lackadaisical cover ends up getting countered. Juvi performs a quick crucifix pin, and Juvi defeats Conan in what I thought was Juvi's best match so far in WCW. Conan keeps his heat by delivering another cradle DDT after the bell, and Juvi gets dumped out of the ring. Not sure if that was totally necessary, but there you have it.
What a sore loser.
JJ Dillon says the Giant approached them earlier on and he requested that the powerbomb was made legal again for his match tonight against Kevin Nash. Nash had dropped Giant on his head, it sold out, and since then the move has been outlawed. In the interest of fairness, Dillon spoke with the NWO and the boys were delighted that Giant would make such a request. So for one night only, because it's uncensored, the powerbomb can be used in the Kevin Nash vs Giant match tonight on pay-per-view. Up next in the ring, we have a cruiserweight title match. Champion Chris Jericho versus challenger
That should be a good match.
Jericho's heel work since January has been fantastic. A breath of fresh air in comparison to the more typical heels we find in WCW and more prominently the New World Order. He tells the ref to show some respect to the champion, and he's got on tights that say Jericho's the man of 1,004 holds. He knows 4 more holds than Dean Malenko apparently. Dean gets the better of Chris during the first exchange and the second exchange. On Chris's third try, he goes down after a shoulder block. He thought he got it right after nailing Malenko with an enziguri, but his springboard crossbody doesn't work and Chris decides to leave. No point in hanging around. He gets to the top of the entranceway, Dean breaks the count, and Chris comes back to the ring after thinking it through for a moment. Jericho takes a good kick in here, but he comes back with a spine buster. He then taunts Dean with his weird strut that would become a favourite in WCW Revenge on N64, and he performs his cocky trademark pin afterwards, only scoring a 2 count. Jericho messes Dean around, toying with the Iceman and choking him on the ropes. He drives his knee into Dean's back while stretching his face, but Dean isn't going to give up.
Okay,
this must be hold 534. Chris.
When I played the old WCW games, I would pick Chris Jericho, and whenever I would play a match with Jericho, I always went and did that cocky pin of his. Anytime the cocky pin was a move in the game, I wanted to use it. I wanted to try winning a match off it, and I always thought when I won a match off the cocky pin, that is one of my favorite moves from Jericho. Oh, I love doing the cocky bit, like, oh, come on. I also like this rivalry between him and Malenko in WCW.
Performs a lion salt, but Malenko gets a foot on the ropes. Chris isn't happy about this, of course. Dean gets choked on the middle rope, and Jericho applies a backbreaker submission. Malenko fights back from the corner, and the crowd cheer for Dean firing up. He performs a back suplex, but Chris gets up first after the count, and Malenko takes a senton. Jericho gives Dean an uncomfortable seat on the middle ropes, and Dean takes a dropkick to the face. Chris then slaps Dean around a bit, and Malenko looks absolutely pissed off, but his attempt at firing up again gets stopped with a reverse suplex from the Cruiserweight Champion. Dean's really struggling to get going here. He tries to steal a victory with a forward roll and a backslide, but Jericho kicks out. Chris wanted to perform his springboard dropkick here, but Malenko was too close to the turnbuckles, and Dean takes a springboard punch to the face. A top rope backdrop counter gives Dean a little bit of hope, but he misses a dropkick afterwards, and Jericho tries to apply a lion tamer, though Dean makes it to the ropes. Dean has one more big counter left in him. He reverses a top rope Hurricane Rana attempt with a super gutbuster, but when he goes for his jumping leg lariat, Chris grabs him and we see the lion tamer. Dean tries to make it to the ropes, but Chris brings him back and Chris sits low. Dean has no choice but to give up, and what a dominating performance here from the Cruiserweight Champion. Dean was completely outperformed in this match, and Mean Gene Okerlund wants to know what's going on. Okerlund totally ignores Jericho so he can have a word with Malenko. Gene says Dean was the odds-on favourite to win tonight and Malenko couldn't get the job done, and Dean just can't speak. Okerlund says he's known Dean since he was a young man, he knew Dean's father, and Gene knows that Malenko should have won this match tonight. He says that Dean's on a pay-per-view losing streak and he calls Dean a bona fide loser. Don't hold back there, Gene. I'm sure he feels much better now that you've said that. Okerlund wants to know, where does Dean Malenko go from here? And Dean says he's going home. Sounds like Dean Malenko's teasing a retirement. An interesting match here, and I like the change of pace. It was unexpected to see Dean get overwhelmed by an opponent, and the post-match interview was good too, even if Mean Gene was an absolute savage. Good stuff though, and another good match at Uncensored.
Savage Mean Gene. I want to see more of that. Next up, we have
Lex Luger versus the newest member of the NWO, Scotty Steiner. And don't get your hopes up either, because it's just under 4 minutes long. Scotty attacks when Luger's getting in the ring. He takes Lex from corner to corner before delivering a belly-to-belly suplex. Steiner then drops an elbow on Lex and he chokes him on the middle rope before a sweet haircut. Nick Patrick tells him to knock it off. The match then goes to the outside where Luger takes more punishment, but Lex counters a suplex.
Was there a build to this match?
Tries to bring him back inside. The moment of the very short match then happens when Steiner throws himself over the guardrail right here, and when the match gets back inside the ropes, Lex begins firing up with an inverted atomic drop and a few clotheslines. Lex signals for the rack, but Steiner hits a low blow. No idea what's going on here with Nick Patrick's positioning, but he, of course, didn't see the kick in the balls. The brutal officiating continues when Luger finds himself in a Steiner recliner with his legs clearly out of the ring, yet Nick Patrick doesn't break the hold. Scott then grabs a chair. He goes to get back in the ring, but brother Rick shows up. Scott's distracted as he steps back inside the ropes. Luger hits him with a forearm to the back while Scott Norton takes out Rick. And that's how it ended. Lex wins via pinfall. Scott attacks Luger and Nick Patrick after the bell, and Luger gets out of the ring when Scott picks up a chair. Rick then gets inside the ropes and he backdrops Scott out of the ring when Scott tries a chair shot. A strange booking decision here, and quite simply, Scotty should have won this match. If WCW want to build him up as a single superstar, then he needs to win matches early on. The Triple Jeopardy match is up next for the US Championship. DDP versus Chris Benoit.
This is the match I've been
versus
waiting
Raven.
for.
Raven and Benoit have been feuding since late 1997, and when DDP offered Chris an opportunity to win the US Championship, Raven and his flock continued to give Chris problems. Benoit and DDP aren't friendly with each other either. Their mini rivalry is all based around respect, but Raven's involvement is a bit more traditional in the sense that he just doesn't like Page nor Benoit, and so we have this Triple Jeopardy match. This is a falls count anywhere bout, and it's first fall to a finish. We get a three-way lockup at the beginning of the match with no one getting an advantage. The three go at it again, and all three men take a punch. And the third three-way lockup results in all guys falling out of the ring. A good original way to start the match. Dallas gets taken out at the ring steps, meaning Benoit and Raven can do some work inside the ropes. Benoit tries to secure a quick win with a hook clothesline and a back elbow, but Raven kicks out. DDP gets back in as Benoit's laying the boots into Raven, and Raven tries to steal a victory over Benoit after a DDP clothesline. You can instantly tell that these guys have went through this match backstage and they aren't winging it at all. Check this out, for example. Benoit slides under Page to hit Raven with a baseball slide, allowing DDP to perform a plancha before the three guys get back in the ring. Compare this to WWF triple threat matches at the time and it's night and day already. Raven gets punished with a snap suplex from Benoit and
I forgot triple threats were kind of new to wrestling at that point. At least with WWF
Benoit
and
delivers a top rope splash on Raven, but Page is right there to break up the cover. And now Page and Benoit are getting a little frustrated with each other. The two fight and they fall out of the ring, allowing Raven to perform a dive over the top rope. Raven hasn't done enough to pin either man though, so all men get up and they begin fighting on the entranceway. All three men take bumps on the guardrails as they make their way closer to the stage, and Raven decides to bring a trash can into the match. Page takes it away, he places it over Raven. Benoit and DDP then hit the trash can with a few crutches that were sitting close by, and then they both try to pin Raven. When Dallas covers Raven, Benoit uses the crutch on Dallas's injured back. We were told for weeks it was injured ribs, but let's not get picky. It's a bandaged area, so it's injured. Raven and Benoit then work together to put DDP through one of the uncensored light boxes sitting on the entrance stage, and they both think doing it again would be a great idea. It looks like Page may be out of the match now, and so Raven and Benoit are going to do a little work together. Benoit hits Raven with a kitchen sink, but the cameraman misses it. The cameras don't miss Raven dropping a table on Benoit though. Chris fires back by throwing Raven into that table while it's set up against the rampway, and Benoit then brings Raven back to the ring while using some rope. A low blow puts Benoit down inside the ring and Raven grabs a chair. He then goes for the drop toe hold, but Benoit counters and Raven takes all the impact. We then see DDP crawling back to the ring as Benoit puts the chair between the top and middle ropes. Raven takes another bump here, and when Raven covers him, the leader of the flock puts a foot on the ropes. Falls count anywhere, guys. Benoit applies a sleeper. DDP shows up to create a human centipede sleeper. Raven breaks it up with a double jawbreaker. Benoit then begins his rolling German suplexes, and Page jumps in for the last one, giving us a big three-man German suplex that makes the crowd go apeshit. Raven and Benoit get up and they take out Page. Raven then orders Benoit.
I gotta say this match, this looks
because
awesome.
the flock have a surprise for Dallas. Lodi's sign. Turns out that's a stop sign the Page just got whacked with, and now Raven's going to use a table to end the match.
Wow.
Benoit ends up taking out Raven with the stop sign while Page is getting set on the table, and Benoit now wants the superplex Raven to win the US Championship. Dallas puts a stop to that though, and Benoit falls out of the ring, and Page hits Raven with a super diamond cutter onto the table. The table didn't break, but it's one of those times you don't really care because it still looked pretty brutal in the best way possible. Dallas retains the US Championship at Uncensored in a very fun Triple Jeopardy match. Chris Benoit extends his hand to DDP, helping Page back to his feet and showing that there's still respect between these two.
What a match. That looked awesome.
Kevin Nash versus the Giants up next, and
Here we
you know
go.
the story. The jackknife and all variations of the powerbomb got outlawed after sold out, and the Giant had to sit on the bench after the incredibly scary botched powerbomb in January. For one night only, the jackknife has been reinstated, even though Hollywood Hogan was paying Nash's fines every time he still used the move. Still, after Dylan's announcement earlier, you definitely expect to see another powerbomb in this Battle of the Big Men.
Let me guess.
And guess what? Yeah,
No
that's
powerbomb.
right. Neither Nash nor the Giant perform a powerbomb in this very match. I know.
Why?
We get a long lockup at the beginning with Nash overpowering the Giant. Kev thinks he's hot shit after dodging a corner attack. Big Sexy then applies a side headlock and he laughs as he switched to a hammerlock. But Giant isn't in the mood, so Nash takes a hard clothesline. The Giant performs an elbow drop. He misses a second, but he's still on his feet before Nash, and Big Sexy gets sent over the top rope. On the outside, Giant gets thrown into the ring post, and this seems to cause the big man some serious problems with his neck. He's slow to get back in the ring, and Kevin taunts Giant as he begins focusing on the upper back and neck. Nash chokes Giant with his big boot in the corner before applying a sleeper, and when Giant fights out, Kevin instantly replies with a clubbing blow to the back of the neck. We then see a leapfrog body guillotine from Kevin Nash, and Big Sexy thinks he has this all figured out. The neck brace comes off as Tony Schiavone says the referee should maybe think about stopping this one, but the Giant then kicks Nash in the balls. If he won't stop it for a low blow, then he's not going to stop it out of sympathy for the Giant. A headbutt floors Kevin and the Giant delivers a few clotheslines. Nash also gets body slammed, and then the Giant signals for the choke slam. The big man changes his mind and he goes for a powerbomb, but Brian Adams shows up and it's a DQ finish. Conan and Vincent attack the Giant, but the big man shoves him away before breaking Adams' baseball bat over his knee. Vincent and Conan get chokeslammed, but Nash breaks another bat across the Giant's back. Still though, the Giant hulks up and the NWO get out of the ring. After all the build-up since Sold Out, it felt really shit and a bit cheap not to get a decisive finish here, and the match itself wasn't good either in comparison to Sold Out, so yeah, this was another dud. Uncensored's turning out like most WCW pay-per-views. When it's good, it's excellent, and when it's bad, it's the absolute shits. Doesn't seem like there's any room in between.
That's sad.
Bret Hart takes on Kurt Hennig at Uncensored as the Hitman continues his quest to break down the NWO brick by brick. Expectations are high due to the history these two have, but let's not forget that Kurt has struggled a little to get that spark back while in WCW. Let's see if the Hitman can bring it out. At the opening bell, Kurt gets out of the ring for a little walk, and when he gets back inside, he slaps Bret before the two lock up. Neither man gets the upper hand, and Kurt complains about the slimy crop in Bret's hair. The Hitman performs a side headlock, and Hennig pulls that slimy crop to try to get out. Bret puts Kurt down with a shoulder block and another headlock takedown. Once again, Kurt goes for the hair, and Hennig manages to bring it to the corner. There's another side headlock, another takedown. There's another hair pull from Hennig. The two try the hip toss spot where Kurt spins on the mat after landing, but it doesn't look as good as before, and Kurt gets frustrated while taking another timeout. After discussing things with Ravishing Rick Rude, Kurt tries to get back in the ring, but Bret has other plans. The Hitman tries a suplex, but Hennig counters. Bret counters the roll-up afterwards, though, and he manages to lock in a sharpshooter, but Rude then jumps in the ring and he punches Bret in the face. Look at how quick Rude gets out again, and how he naturally resumes the position he was in. It's fantastic. The fans tell the referee that Rude jumped in, but the heels get away with it and the match continues on. Hennig pulls off his knee scissor stomp, and Kurt's going to play Bret at his own game by softening up the left leg and knee. Mike Tenay says the plan here is to render the sharpshooter ineffective. Rick Rude chokes Bret while the referee isn't looking, and Kurt wraps the Hitman's leg around the ring post. Our referee remains absolutely oblivious as Rude does the same moments later. Obviously, Rick absolutely loves it as Kurt slaps Bret around in the opposite corner before locking in a figure four. Rick's going to give Kurt a hand too, and again, Rick's so good at resuming the position when he thinks he's going to get caught out. Eventually, the referee notices Rude helping Kurt, so the hold gets broke. Bret tries to fight back in the corner, and he does stun Hennig for a moment, but a few kicks to the injured leg sends Bret back down to the mat, and Kurt's going to twist the knee and hope for a submission victory. Bret won't give up though, so Kurt drops a leg over the Hitman before delivering a body slam. Kurt then goes to the top rope, but Bret's able to shake the pain off for a moment, and Hennig gets crotched on the turnbuckle. Hart pulls himself up, and we see Hennig's ring post nutshot spot that again makes me think of SummerSlam 91 and how things in that match just went so well. Bret then delivers an inverted atomic drop followed by a clothesline. Bret hits a side Russian leg sweep and a bulldog from the corner, but Hennig stays in it by getting a foot on the ropes. Hennig takes a backbreaker. We see the elbow from Bret's rope. Hennig kicks out of the follow-up cover, and Hart takes the sternum first corner bump. Kurt then performs the perfect plex. That should be it all over, but Bret somehow kicks out, and Kurt can't believe it. Rude gets on the apron and Bret sends Kurt into Rude. Bret tries to roll Kurt up, but Hennig counters while grabbing the tights, but still, the match isn't over. Bret counters a Hennig sunset flip with a sharpshooter, and just as Kurt tops out, Rick Rude launches an attack. This is pretty cool because we see Rude getting very physical here, and it's something we hadn't seen in a long time. He even pulls off a Rude awakening on Bret after Kurt nails the Hitman with a chair. Kurt's next chair shot looked absolutely terrible, but fair dues, I guess, for trying to protect your opponent. Still, it would have been best if he didn't use the chair at all. Kurt puts a foot on Bret as it's announced that Bret Hart's the winner via submission. It's unfair to compare this to SummerSlam 91, but it's also very hard not to because that IC title match was so good. This Uncensored match wasn't bad by any means, but
does
if you
make
want
me
to see
kind of want to
Hennig
go
versus
watch the
Hart, you
Uncensored.
simply can't beat their
Not the
1991
SummerSlam
MSG
match.
encounter. Hennig was pretty good here at Uncensored, though, and he does wrestle these Bret matches differently. So yeah, it's still good. There's just better options available.
I assume next is the title match.
Scott Hall
Yep.
finally gets his world title shot after winning World War III 1997. He was supposed to get his opportunity at Super Brawl, but due to the controversial Sting versus Hogan nonsense from Starrcade, the bad guy had to take a back seat and wait it out. Hall's reactions to playing second fiddle to Hogan were inconsistent from a TV standpoint. He was upset at first and he even walked away from Hogan, but the next week he was back to being Hulk's best friend. I just put this down to WCW struggles with continuity, really. Dusty Rhodes comes to the ring with Hall, and the commentators wonder how the dynamic within the NWO would change if Scott Hall wins the belt tonight. Sting walks down to the ring, getting a great ovation as always, and the bad guy decides to snatch the belt away from Mark Curtis and hold it up in the air. Sting doesn't take too kindly to this, and the bell rings as Sting begins attacking Scott. Scott goes to the outside. This clearly wasn't how Hall wanted to start the bout. Hall gets back in the ring and he manages to get Sting in a wrist lock, but Sting stops the shoulder attacks with a short arm clothesline. Hall backs up. He considers a new strategy, so he invites Sting in for a test of strength. Sting falls for it and Scott gets in a cheap shot. A few right hands get followed up with a hip toss block and Scott pulls off a choke slam, but instead of covering Sting, he makes fun of the Giant. This was a costly mistake. Sting pulls off a facebuster followed by a few right hands. Scott's all over the place as Sting continues to strike him, and a dropkick ends up getting Hall stuck in the ropes. Dusty lends a hand and the bad guy falls to the outside. Dream gives Scott some advice before the match resumes. He then trips Sting up and this allows Scott to hit a clothesline, but Sting kicks out of the follow-up cover. Scott floors the world champion with a discus punch. We see a corner clothesline followed by the fall-away slam, but again Scott only gets a 2 count. Bobby Heenan says Scott Hall could run the NWO if he wins the world belt tonight as our match continues on. Scott slaps Sting around a little. He pokes Sting in the eye when the champ fights back. The two then crash into each other during an Irish whip, but Scott gets the worst of this exchange when Sting falls on Scott's little bad guy. Mark Curtis begins a 10 count, and Scott manages to distract the referee long enough for Dusty Rhodes to slowly creep into the ring and drop an elbow on the Stinger. One of the most slow and deliberate pieces of interference I've ever seen, but everyone involved gets a pass because everyone involved is so awesome. Scott begins landing the punches and Sting's not budging. The Icon screams at Scott before delivering an inverted atomic drop, and Scott then takes a Stinger splash to the back. When Sting goes for the deathlock, Dusty gets on the apron. Sting takes out Dusty. Scott tries to steal the victory, but Scott gets thrown into Mark Curtis, and Mark goes down in spectacular fashion. Looks like he's having fun here. Dusty gives Scott those brass knucks that don't look like brass knucks, but we'll call them brass knucks anyway. Sting gets whacked. The referee wakes up, but Sting kicks out at 2. The crowd went crazy for this kick out. Paul says that's enough. He goes for the outsider's edge. He gets the Stinger up, but the champ counters and we see the Scorpion death drop. After waiting this long, Scott Hall couldn't beat the Stinger and the championship remains with World Championship Wrestling. Not a great world title match if I'm honest. It was okay and the guys didn't do anything wrong. I don't know what it is, but I think Scott and Sting just don't pair up very well. I would have much preferred if Sting beat Hall without the interference and the brass knucks and all that stuff, but there you have it. Sting remains world champion.
Sorry, Scott. Here we go.
Hollywood Hogan versus Macho Man Randy Savage is our main event. This one's been building up for months and it's all about Savage going rogue. Hollywood wanted Savage to remember his place in the NWO totem pole, but Savage wouldn't accept Hogan telling him what to do. Things reached the boiling point at Super Brawl when Hulk stopped the NWO from helping Savage during Randy's match with Lex Luger, and later that night, Randy Savage cost Hogan the World Championship. Things would continue to escalate when the men got personal, bringing their families into it when cutting promos, and Macho Man even started hanging around with WCW guys such as The Giant and Sting. One of the biggest head scratchers about this whole thing though is why has Savage remained in the NWO when the whole faction have turned their backs on him? Or why hasn't Hogan just kicked Randy out of the group? So over these past few weeks we've all been kinda dubious about this rivalry. Progression has completely stalled and nothing's changed for a long time, but maybe tonight it all comes to an end and we can move on to something else. The cage lowers and we can see it's a different design this time around, not like that monstrosity we saw at Halloween Havoc. Hollywood Hogan comes out first and he's got a golden tooth. Old hip Hogan with a gold tooth. What a complete arsehole. Out comes Randy Savage along with Miss Elizabeth, and now it's time for the Uncensored 1998 main event. Hogan goes on the attack right away as the production crew have difficulties sorting out the arena lights. The ring then gets lit up and the cage fence is going to make this a bit tricky to watch when we switch to hard camera. Hollywood chokes Randy on the top rope. The Macho Man takes the big boot as Liz watches on from the outside. Hogan then rakes Randy's back in the corner before sending him into the opposite corner for a clothesline. The Macho Man gets choked with Hogan's boot and Hogan then tries to slam Savage's face into the cage, but Randy blocks it. Hogan decides to rake Savage's face instead. Hollywood performs a body slam. He tries to hit a few elbow drops, but Randy moves out of the way. And now the Macho Man's going to go on offense for a while. Randy lands a few lefts, followed by a right and a back elbow. He sinks his boot into Hogan's neck before choking Hollywood with a bandana. The choking continues on the mat, and Randy then tries to ram Hogan's head into the steel, but it looks like neither of these brothers want to take any bumps that involve the cage. Another rake to the face turns it around for Hogan, and Savage then gets whipped with Hogan's weight belt. Randy gets choked this time around, and I'm sorry, I can only talk about what happens in the ring, but this has been boring as fuck. More whips to the back from Hollywood.
I have a cage match if you don't want to have bumps with the cage.
This gives Randy a chance to use that belt. Hogan gets whipped. Randy covers Hogan, but Hogan kicks out. There's another choke right there from Randy Savage. An absolutely terrible cage bump from Hogan that again reminded me of the Halloween Havoc main event. Hogan gets whipped again. He gets thrown into the cage again. Randy then punches Hogan in the face, and we see Hollywood's been busted open. Things get a little better when Hogan backdrops Savage into the cage. At least it's something different. He then he picks up his belt and he whips Randy a few times. Randy then gets on Hogan's shoulder, and Hollywood drives the Macho Man's head into the cage. Randy takes a seat while he bleeds. Both men are busted open, and forget what I said about both guys not wanting to take bumps that involve the cage. Macho Man takes a beating here while covered in blood. Randy can barely stand as Hogan continues to lay in the strikes, and I gotta say, the blood has changed the dynamic of this match in a good way. This is a great example of color actually helping a match that had nothing going for it until both men started bleeding. And then things just get confusing when referee Mickey J opens the cage door and he lets Hogan do more damage on the outside. I don't understand. Isn't the whole purpose of a cage match to keep both guys inside and have a fight to the finish? Anyway, not a lot happens on the outside. Hogan does more damage before the two get back inside the cage, and the Macho Man fights back. Macho then gets an adrenaline spike and he climbs the cage in record time. He delivers a double axe handle from the top, and the producers must have decided to keep the camera zoomed out due to the amount of blood in the match. Savage is all fired up now. He signals for the elbow drop, but then the NWO Booty Man shows up. He gets the key from Mickey J. He gets in the ring. He saves Hogan and he takes out Charles Robinson. NWO Beefcake then invites Randy to jump down with that elbow drop, but Randy decides to climb down instead. Just then, backup arrives in the form of the Stinger. Sting's here to help out the Macho Man. The four men have a stare down, and Randy seems happy to get a little support, but then he clotheslines Sting, and the crowd are left completely confused. Guys, no shit, this is how the match ends. Randy spits on Hogan and he says he never liked Hollywood. Hogan reminds Randy that Macho's part of the NWO, and the show fades to black. There's no winner, there's no loser, just confusion as fans file out of the arena wondering what the fuck that main event was all about.
Nitro better have a good explanation for this.
There are some real highlights on this show, with the first three matches ranging from very good to great. The Triple Jeopardy US title match is great too,
Yeah.
and Brett versus Hennig wasn't bad either. But there's also a few stinkers here that really hurts the show, and the main event was just, I don't know. I really don't know what to say about it, except it was a spit in the face to people who paid money to see this event. It was getting good when the blood started flowing. Hogan and Savage did turn it up for a few moments, but the match fell in
Man.
quality just as quickly as it started picking up. It sucks too, because I like recommending WCW shows to some of you guys who might have missed out previously, but again, I have to warn you to be selective about this show. There's some great stuff in Uncensored 1998 that you shouldn't miss out on, but there's also some problematic matches that makes you remember why WCW failed so hard as time went on. Still, check out the good matches I mentioned. Don't miss Malenko vs Jericho, the opener, Conan vs Guerrera in the US title matches. The rest, take it or leave it. Thanks for watching this one, guys. Again, apologies
Nice.
for my bad throat, but it's not like I have the voice of an angel anyway. And I hope you join me
You
next Thursday for
sounded
reliving
fine.
the war, and we'll see what's next for WCW and the NWO on Monday Nitro. Take care, everyone, and again, thank you for watching.
So that was WCW Uncensored 1998. I might go watch the show. Oh, that was pretty good. Please go support Wrestling Bio. He does a tremendous job on his channel. Go check out the original video. It'll be found in the description, and the channel will also be in the description of this video. That's all I gotta say. Hey, hope you enjoyed another episode of Electricity React. If you did, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Well, if you're brand new, I really you would appreciate it. And once again, and thanks so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next video. I'm Elliot Electricity. Peace. I am out. Goodbye. Hobie.